company, and welcome to Show People, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the UK performing arts industry and those dedicated to their craft, covering the latest news and issues, what to see and do, showcasing theatrical talent, and always trying to inform, educate, and entertain. My name is Andrew Keates. I'm a director and your host. Now, today is the hottest day of the year, and we've got a leading man to match. He's just returned from the Great White Way and West End, playing Chris in Cameron Mackintosh's production of Miss Saigon. He's played both Marius and Enjolras in the West End production of Les Miserables, Greedy, Billy in Taboo and Warhorse, plus many other stage productions. Please welcome the one, the only, Mr. Alistair Brammer.
Oh, hello. Oh, how did you get all these people in here?
Guys, can you shush, please? Shush.
Come on.
They're gone.
This ain't Deck and Deck Saturday Night Takeaway.
Coming up on today's show, on the Soapbox, Alistair Brammer and I will be discussing typecasting and pigeonholing. Are some performers only destined to play the same kinds of parts? I'll be covering the latest dramatic news. On the platform, we have music from Ashley M.A. Walsh's The Jury, and I'll be interviewing Alistair Brammer all about his life, career, and setting him some infamous Show People challenges too. You're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates and Alistair Brammer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Isn't it hot?
It's really hot today. It's the hottest day of the year, right?
I believe so. I mean, depending on when people are listening to this, I mean, currently it is, the 19th of April, 2018. There will be hotter days, but right now it is sweaty.
I can always tell how hot it is by the colour of my nose. My nose is like my litmus test for the heat.
There is a certain look of Rudolph about you, just a little bit.
It's always my nose. It's because it's upturned, like a bit like a pig.
Oh, no, you've not got a piggy nose.
Thanks.
No.
Okay. Sure.
Alistair Brammer, fact, doesn't have the nose of a pig.
No.
Bear that in mind. Anyone casting upcoming productions of Betty Blue Eyes.
Babe the Musical.
I would love that would be such a brilliant show.
I don't know how. I mean, they've already got a prop. Just get Cameron to give them Betty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easily done.
Speaking of really, really hot weather.
Go on.
You've just come back from Broadway.
Yes. Yes. Speaking of really hot weather where it was -5. Yes.
Oh, what? So it was proper freezing, like...
Well, I left New York in January, and then I went to LA where it was lovely and warm.
Uh-huh.
But yes, New York freezing in January. I mean, really unbearable.
Are you missing it?
I'm missing certain things about the city. I love city. For instance, I say city now instead of city.
Did you find yourself
no
attracting some of the American sort of dialects?
Well, there are certain not so much the dialect, but there are certain words. If you're on the phone and you're trying to kind of give your phone number, you'd say 014. You would just because otherwise they don't know what you're saying. It's hilarious.
Oh, so you weren't
subconsciously? No, it's absolutely conscious. And things like if you say "Where's the bin?" They look at you like you're speaking a foreign language, and you're holding an empty soda can or whatever, and you say, "Come on, the bin," and they say, "What?" And the trash can, and they honestly they really don't try and understand.
Did you have the great biscuit muffin debate as well?
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's essentially a scone, isn't it, or a scone? But they call that a biscuit. Yeah, They don't know what you mean when you say I dip biscuits in my tea.
And I understand there's a great shortage of good biscuits in America.
I mean, yeah, there aren't. It's an amnesty. They're all really finding it quite hard over there. The complete lack of cookies, as they call them.
Maybe I should set up like a UK biscuit company that just you can sell over there. Just bring McVitie's biscuits and sell them for $10.
Well, the problem with any of the biscuits I like sort of McVitie's chocolate digestives, other biscuits are available.
Very good.
They have them over there, but they're like literally $6.99. To buy a small packet of them.
Did you buy a packet occasionally just because you're missing
every week? Yeah. It didn't stop me.
This is not a rehearsal room unless there are digestive biscuits.
It's true.
Where are the hobnobs?
I stand by that. Yeah, tea, coffee, and good
hobnob.
biscuits. Yeah,
good hobnob.
Or a ginger snap.
Yeah. I'm quite partial to a ginger nut as well.
Yes.
Very different things.
Oh, are they the different things?
Yeah, ginger snap is like one of the curly things.
They're made out of sugar. I mean ginger nuts.
You mean ginger nuts?
Yeah. Fact. I think it's because I buy like Tesco Value own ones, and they're called like ginger snap, I think, or something, or like
you've got to be careful with the Value biscuits. I warn you, beware value Jaffa cakes. They're just not the same.
I can imagine they wouldn't be, yeah.
No, they're filled with something, but it's not Jaffa.
But see, that's true. But just because I don't want to give them a really bad rep, mate. Come on, let's not do this.
No.
Certain ones I really like. I really like that they're not as strong in flavour. Sometimes they're a bit overpowering.
Overpowering Jaffa cakes.
I like a nice subtle biscuit.
Do you ever feel, Alistair, that you and I might suffer from middle class problems sometimes, just occasionally?
I think so. I mean, my bagel maker broke this morning. I wonder if that's. I know.
Jaunty, Jemima.
Stop playing with your rocking horse and come in here.
Yeah. So
Jaunty
and Jemima from Chiswick, clearly. So in all seriousness, though, how is the West End been different to Broadway? What are the big differences?
The fans over there are amazing, actually. I would come out of the stage door here and and you'd sort of walk out and there'd be 3 people too shy to talk to you. And I would never, back here, I would never assume that people are there because they want me to write my name on a piece of paper, you know. So I would walk out and stand and sort of smile for 3 seconds to give them a chance if they want to, and then turn left and get on my night bus or whatever, go home. Whereas in New York, when I walked out, I remember I walked out behind a girl who was playing Ellen. It's on our first night, and she walked out and just Sharpie straight out of her pocket, just the assumption. And they all do want it though. So I understood afterwards. I was like, and there was about every night, at least 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 people out there easily. Definitely not 90. I skipped that 10. Didn't you know?
Yeah, there's no 90.
60, 70, 80, 100. But yeah. So actually, by the end of it, I was doing the same because that is why they're there. So they love it more, basically, is the biggest difference. They adore it. Whereas in the UK, I think they do like it, but they're quieter about it.
And obviously you were playing Chris in Miss Saigon. Mm-hmm. The size of the theatres in America, they're not necessarily as old as ours, but they're barns.
They're
and
barns,
certainly the one you were in is, which theatre were you in?
We were the Broadway theatre.
You were at the Broadway theatre.
Which is the only theatre that's actually on Broadway.
Oh, I love that fact.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? All the rest of them are just off Broadway. Or just on streets between,
So all of your mates,
9.
you can say none of you guys were actually in Broadway shows.
On Broadway. I was at the Broadway on Broadway.
On Broadway.
Yeah.
How did the production change? Did it get even bigger, or was it scaled down?
It was, to be honest, it was pretty similar actually. They made a couple of changes stylistically to it, but no, pretty much it was very similar actually. I think they literally used the same set.
Yeah.
So it was literally the same. Yeah. Sorry to be boring.
No, not at all. And why does that show have such... I mean, all great stories have an epic backdrop of some kind. There are other things you've done. For example, you did Taboo, for example, you have the backdrop of the AIDS crisis. You did Les Miserables.
Where it's the World War. Yeah.
Exactly. There's always something big at the back. Mm-hmm. However, the Vietnam War and the production itself, certainly Nick Hytner's original production, was so epic in size. Do you think you need that epicness to tell that musical?
To tell this musical or that musical, yes, you do. I think you do. I think it needs to be... it depends, really. There are certain moments in the show that wouldn't be the same if there wasn't a helicopter that comes on the stage. It's become known for that. So if you went and saw one and it was just... some dodgy production where just a sort of wind machine went, that must be the helicopter. Yeah. You'd be disappointed now. I suppose if you'd started by telling the story in a really small way, but then there's so many because there's so many big dance numbers in it. You've got the opening and then you've got the American Dream and you've got Morning of the Dragon, all these big dance numbers. So they have to be, and if you got those, but then this really tiny story, it would be weird. Mm-hmm. It needs to, I think it does need the scale.
Was it a show that you always loved growing up as a kid? Yeah.
Do you know what? I didn't really get into musicals until I was about 16, and until I really was like, oh, that's quite cool. They're telling a story, but they're singing, And so I had a job. One of my first jobs when I was 17 was, it sounds like the most boring job, and it is the most boring job. I was working for the council, and I would sit at a crossroads in Exeter, where I'm from, and on a deck chair in the morning during and for 10 hours and mark off whether cars go left, right or forwards.
What heinous job.
It was
there is why?
It was research so they could improve the roads. And so I was 17. I just managed to get into this for me, a sweet gig as a 17-year-old lad getting £10 an hour. That was like incredible.
Sat just marking where cars go, listening to musicals.
And sometimes if you were busy, if it wasn't busy or you couldn't bother, you would just sort of go, right, in the last hour it's been roughly 12 this way, and you would just do it again. It was like really, you didn't even have to.
I mean, are you suggesting that maybe after a night out you might not have turned up and just sort
just
of
flag the numbers?
Maybe.
Maybe, who knows? But so how I got into
I just like the idea that this road has been totally overdeveloped since you've left. Like it's now a ring road
it's
system.
Some huge ring road.
Because one day you woke up and went, I don't know, about 1,000.
Yeah, this could really do with a one-way system. They all turned left this day. Yeah, but so it was right by the library. So I would go and get like 3 musical theatre CDs because I just joined my local amateur dramatics group, and I thought this would be a good time to listen to some. I didn't know any. The only one I knew was Les Mis, really. Mm-hmm. So I started listening to, and I found this one called Miss Saigon. I was, it's by the guys that wrote that other one I liked. So I listened to it, and I thought that is cool, and that part is cool.
Yeah.
And since I heard it, and then I sang one of the duets at a concert when I was like 18, and I thought that's what I want to do actually. And it happened to turn out I was possibly a bit young when I did it in the West End. I was 24, 25. And they tend to cast them more towards 30, but I thought I'm probably just about in the right bracket to play this.
Yeah.
And I did.
Well, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about Miss Saigon and the rest of your career. But now it's time for a Show People podcast challenge, Alistair Brammer. I have a copy of your CV.
Okay.
Right in front of me.
It sounds like you do.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. It says here, Fra Fee. No, Alistair Brammer. Here we are. Alistair Brammer.
Sure, well, I'm Fraffy. How's it going? Like,
that's not bad. It's not bad for our fee.
Thanks.
I would like you to deliver all of your credits and special skills.
What?
In 60 seconds.
What are you talking about?
Your time starts now.
Oh my... What? Okay, right. Oh, that's more pressure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do anything. Right, okay, hang on. My CV.
Yes.
So the things I've done. That is horrible. Okay. First, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolour Dreamcoat.
Yes.
Les Miserables, Marius.
Yes.
I'm going to try and do a hair tribe. I was in the tribe, I think.
You were.
Oh God, this is horrible.
Yes, I know.
Taboo, Billy.
Yeah.
Warhorse, Billy.
Yeah.
Narracop.
He has played other parts other than one's called Billy.
Yeah. Billy.
You went in Billy Elliot.
No. What else? There was. Miss Saigon, Chris.
Yes.
Jack Diamond, Casualty.
Yes.
Eric, Episodes.
Yes.
Vicious, Oliver.
Yes.
Oh God. That's it. No, Honduras, Dubai, Opera House, Les Miserables is the show.
And
that's it, isn't it?
No.
What?
So back in Kane and the future look rough.
Joseph and the Amazing Technicolour Dreamcoat.
And who did you play?
Understudy Joseph and Zebulon.
And you were in a film called Les Miserables.
Oh shit!
Very good.
Oh dear. Yes, of course.
That little thing. Yeah. That little thing. Not bad at all. Now, what I want to ask about, just because.
Oh God, it's going to be something really awful.
No, it's not awful. I just
whistling.
Just tell me. Just
what is it?
Just vicious. What's that all about?
Vicious.
Yeah.
What's it about?
Well, no, I know what it's about.
Do you mean just figurative? What's that about?
You know, sort of. So you were the guy that was upstairs.
Yes, at the end. Yes.
At one point, did you ever feel slightly objectified, just a little bit?
Well, I was luckily I didn't play. So I auditioned for the role of Ash, who was played by Iwan Rion.
Yeah.
And I got down pretty far, but I didn't get it. And then my friend Gary, who writes it, he also writes for Family Guy, and he's amazing. He wrote for Will and Grace. He's huge. We sort of kept in touch, and I went back and auditioned for various roles as it was going on, but nothing really happened. But then he wrote this part especially for me in the finale, which was really nice.
Was it written especially for you?
He just called and said, "I've written a part that I want you to do."
Oh.
Which was lovely.
I feel really bad now.
No, it's all right. It was it was sort of I suppose broad, but I really loved it purely. I mean, largely because Gary is such a fantastic. He really is a great writer, and he's such a nice, generous man. And the cast. I was going to say. To be in a room with these people was just the most amazing experience. It was
Francis de la Tour,
Unbelievable.
Derek Jacobi, Ian McKellen.
Yeah, it was just the stories that you heard just whilst eating your lunch together. You were just, it was one of those rooms where you just shut up. It's like, there's no point in me saying, oh yeah, I had a similar thing once, because you didn't.
I'm in a show with a helicopter. Yeah, like
there was one point when one of the other actresses said to Ian, when I forgot her name, God love her, she's the nicest person, but she played Penelope in the show. Anyway, she said to Ian, do you remember the time that we did that Shakespeare in front of the Pope? And Ian went, no. Just didn't remember that. Okay, great.
Or he's just the king of one-liners. I've been very fortunate to spend a bit of time with Ian. He's best friends with Martin Sherman, who obviously wrote Bent for him and this, that, and the other. Okay. So the thing with Ian McKellen is you just look at him and go, there's something deity-like about him. Like even as he sort of stood talking to you with a cigarette on, you just look into that face and yeah, he's an extraordinary. And Derek Jacobi, of course.
Yeah. No, there is something about him. He's extraordinary. He came and saw before I did Vicious, when Gary and I were just sort of keeping in touch, they came and saw Miss Saigon in London, and it was Gary Giannetti, who's the writer, Gary Reich, a producer, and Ian. And they came backstage afterwards and we were having some wine in the dressing room and all this. This is cool. I'm having wine with Gandalf, you know. But whenever I meet people like that, there's something in me. I try and play it cool, and I usually succeed. But sometimes I play it so cool that I end up just being really rude. Because I don't want to be one of those people. Because when honestly on the Les Mis film, you saw the way that they would just stand around looking at Russell Crowe as if he was an animal in a zoo. It was hilarious. It was like, how can you not know that this isn't normal behavior? So I always sort of stay away, and then if they come over to me, or not they would come over, but if we're making tea and they come to the tea table, I say, oh, how's it going? You know, and I just remember I used a really bad swear word when Ian was talking, giving his opinion on something, and it was really valid and really cool. And I just dropped the C-bomb.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is that? And it was these one American, an older gentleman.
And over there, that's the worst word I didn't realise how in America the C-bomb over there is.
We use it here as a term of endearment. Yeah. And over there, it is the worst word it's the worst thing you can say.
And I hate to say it, there are racial slurs which are sort of lower down on the pecking order than which I cannot get my mind around.
I know. It's one of them is just swearing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I know it's got a connotation, but it's essentially just a swear word. It's like calling someone a name.
Yeah.
Whereas one of them has got such deep-rooted meaning, and yet definitely that word's more offensive, definitely.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's strange, yeah.
So I'm going to be talking to Alistair all about his life and career. However, just a little message from this lovely chap.
This is Liam Tamney, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates. I see you shiver with anticipation.
Well, it's time for the Soapbox, the part of the show where we discuss something that has been grinding my special guest's gears. Alistair, what are we going to be talking about today?
I think we're going to talk about pigeonholing in the industry.
Okay.
For me, it's a thing that and it's not just musical theatre, it's everything. Mm-hmm. It's I've know various examples of people who are seen a certain way and they just can't break that. And it's so silly of directors, casting directors, to not open their minds to a possibility. Mm-hmm. That's what I'd like to talk about.
Well, it's an interesting one because there's conversations that I've had with actors before where, as a director, I go, I still believe all of the roles that I've seen actors at their best tends to be not just by them being really fine actors, but they can sometimes be like a really intrinsic quality within somebody which just lends itself to a character.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying to be Judd Fry, you need to be mentally deranged, but there does need to be an edge to that actor which is inherent in some way or another. Otherwise, it can just look a little bit plastered on.
Well, but I think that if you're a good actor, you can make it look like that without it looking plastered on. Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing, and all I ask is for the opportunity. If they audition you and then they say, "Yep, see, he can't play Judd Fry because he can't do that thing," fine.
So it's about getting in the room in the first place.
It's about getting the actual opportunity to say just to confirm with them that you're wrong for it.
Yeah.
Obviously, they can't cast you as if they're looking for an old black woman. They're not going to look at you for that role.
No, they're not going to say, is Brian Blessed available?
No.
Although, come to think of it.
I mean, not Mulder. But if they're casting a drug dealer, or, something that I might not necessarily be the immediate, because I might look a bit too healthy to play a drug dealer. Mm-hmm. But see me and see if there's an edge in me where you go, wow, actually, there's something in his eyes that's really freaking me out, and actually, he's really good at this. Or... Yep, see, he was rubbish. Fine. But at least I got to show you that I'm rubbish.
Do you still find, even with your profile in the industry, that you still struggle getting through the door for certain jobs?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of actors. That's the thing. There's so many actors. And so I understand it to a degree. Because I remember I was auditioning for... But the other thing is, it's different in the States. It's not like this in the States. They're very open-minded to...
How does it differ?
They're very open-minded to seeing people that have done musicals or seeing a dancer and thinking, actually, there's something in him. He might be great for this acting role. Or they are much more open. They see everyone. The downside to it, something that I did hear once, I was auditioning for a sitcom or something. I was in the ABC building waiting outside, and I heard a casting director talking to her assistant. And she said, is that girl available that we saw last week for that sitcom? And this guy went, yes, she is, but she does funny stuff really more. She's purely comedy. Oh, so she isn't right for this drama then? And it was just completely dismissed as an option because her CV had been comedy.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the most amazing performances, Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or Paul Giamatti turns to comedy and then does an amazing dramatic. It's so silly. But I sort of understand it, because if you don't pigeonhole it, then how on earth are you going to make decisions?
There's a phrase that's been said to me, I think, ever since I started in this business, which I think is a really good comfort blanket for actors, which is, there's just nothing around. Now, yeah. I'm not aware of a time where there's ever been less theatres and less work going on. There's certainly been a time where things have been clogged up a little bit, like there are... the stalwart musicals, which will be there long after you and I are dead. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
I would like to see more empowerment from actors. That might sound really, really silly, because there are certainly far more successful directors and producers out there that hold those keys to those doorways. I'm sure there are people that would kill for a Les Mis audition, which you've been fortunate enough to have. But I would sort of like to see actors creating more of their own work. There's so many preconceptions that come with some of the roles out there. I've never understood why does a leading man need to be 6'2" or 6'4". Don't get it. I just don't understand it. Some of my favourite actors are 5 foot whatever. Why are people not being able to get in the door because they're 6'1", not 6'4"? Do those 3 inches really matter?
I know. Well, I know it. I guess that's about pairing. So if they've got a girl who's 5'7" playing the girl, you can't have a guy who's 5'8".
What, you mean like real life?
Yeah, I know, I know, but it's an aesthetic thing, isn't it? I agree. It's silly. Why can't you? I'll tell you one thing that bothers me as well is the every single actor in TV and film has this solid head of hair that's like wire, and I go, I look around at the human race, and I go, oh, I've got friends who are bold, friends who are balding, thinning, and you go, what's this impossible image of men? And then there's, of course, it's worse for women, obviously. There's crazy, you see these poor women in the industry who just get so much work done that they don't look like a human anymore. Yeah. Because they're under a pressure. It's nothing to do with vanity, I don't think. I mean, some of it might be, but I think mostly they've been pigeonholed as... You play the 32-year-old sexy new mother. That's your thing you do now, Jennifer Aniston, for instance. And so that's the role that she plays. And for the last 20 years, they've been trying to make her look 30. Yeah. Which since she was 30, and they're sort of not allowing her to age, and then that's why you see so many actresses disappear for 5 or 6 years, and then come back and play Robert De Niro's wife, aka Michelle Pfeiffer did just that. She was playing these young roles, and sort of Sam I Am, is it Sam I Am, the film? I Am Sam with Sean Penn. It's based on it mentions Sam I Am, the book, the doctor. But yeah, and she sort of did those films and then kind of fizzled out and went away, and now she's come back and she's doing all these really cool roles in like Murder on the Orient Express and this HBO thing about what's his name? Anyway, and so it's weird how she had to disappear for 5 years to come back and suddenly be old.
I think one of the saddest things I've found, I mean, you at the moment are hot property, good-looking, straight leading man in the West End. There are friends of mine, I'm not going to name who are now in their 50s or 60s that played the roles that you have played.
Mm-hmm.
And how disloyal the industry can be because they no longer look the way they did. And oddly, it's almost like some characters must be beautiful and some characters are, there seems to be no middle ground. You're either ugly or beautiful. So you go from, some people who played Enjolras, for example, 20, 30 years ago, and now the only role they'll be seen for is Thénardier. And you think, what? How has that changed?
I know.
So much. I mean, I understand, look, we all like a really good-looking poster boy. Don't get me wrong, but there's got to be more to a character than are they 6'2" and do they have perfect teeth?
I was talking to a friend of mine who was in a show, and she said that one of the casting directors, when this guy walked into the casting room to play this role, and they said, "Oh, look at him! Look how gorgeous he is! I don't care if he can act or sing. I mean, look at him." And I just thought that's so not the right way to approach casting.
It's disgusting.
I don't care if he can act or sing. Look at him. Yeah. That's just so the opposite to me.
And also just doesn't have the artist's best interest at heart.
No, it's patronising.
There is a very well-known choreographer who I mentioned. There was something where there was clearly somebody who was very, very good-looking, but couldn't sing, couldn't dance, couldn't act, but was stunning. And this choreographer said to me, cock casting strikes again. And it was about, a predominantly well-known, gay production company always giving the job to the prettiest boy rather than necessarily the most talented. And
Well, there's this whole thing with, we're talking about a very big issue. There's the race thing going on right now, which I'm not one to talk. I mustn't talk about it at length because it's not for me to talk about.
I don't know. I've been very vocal about it over the next few years because do you know what you and I both have? You've got thousands of people that follow you on Twitter just by asking the question about racial casting. Actually, we're the ones who are in a position where we can say something and people listen to us because do you know what? We've been given a break because of, and it's not a dodgy phrase, because of white privilege. There's simply more opportunities for us because we're white.
Yes.
And if you're an East Asian artist or a black artist or wherever you're from, there's simply less roles for you.
Yeah. But where it's so, yes, absolutely, completely true. I agree 100%. But the other thing is recently it's been actively going, I want someone black for this or Asian for this or without any reason. And I think it should have always been and should always be, starting from now, see everyone and cast the best actor and singer.
Yeah.
It does not matter where they are from, how they look, whether they are gay, whether they are fat, whether they've got, unless it's this, the story warrants that is about, you couldn't have a skinny Tracy Turnblad because the whole story is that she's overweight and she still is accepted.
I get what you mean. The only thing about that, just for you to be aware of, is that's a really good even playing field. But the problem with it is you've got so many groups that have just not been invested in, that have not been taken into drama school. Their playwrights, their stories have not been said. So for me, it's not about an even playing field. It's about bringing up the minority groups that have just been underinvested in and going, do you know what?
Totally.
We need to get you seen because, as I've said on this podcast loads of times, it really upsets me. Not that I watch EastEnders, but if I go back home at Christmas and my mum's watching EastEnders, her favourite programme, it really upsets me that I turn it on and there's not an East Asian family, and there has never been an East Asian family in Albert Square. Now, there's definitely East Asian people who live in East London.
Yes.
I've had dinner there.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
In the same way that it really upsets me when I go back and watch, shows from the 80s and the 90s, and the only time you see a black character is when they're a rapist, a murderer, or a drug dealer.
Well, I mean, that's from, and hopefully, and I think that's gone now. I think people are, not gone, I don't mean gone at all, but people are much more careful to go, well, hang on, why on earth should he necessarily, that's absurd.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things, I was sitting with someone once and we were watching Les Mis, and a black actor, I forget his name, it wasn't Norm Lewis, because I was working with, this was when I was like 16, was playing Javert. And
I know what you're going to say. Can I guess what somebody said?
What? Yeah.
He would never be the inspector because he was black at that time.
He never would have been black then. Yeah. And I just think that the prejudices of the past must not inform
Totally.
the prejudices of casting now.
Yeah.
Just because we were racist back then,
Yeah.
it doesn't and
theatre's
therefore
not a
it makes
documentary.
it slightly historically inaccurate. Who cares? That's absurd.
I've given this example before, but I've always said I would love to see a stage play about a young Queen Victoria played by Gemma Chan. Like, I have absolutely no problems with that because do you know what? It's not a documentary.
Quite right.
And I just wish we would start seeing... Do you know what? This comes back to why you raised this point. I would like to see more casting directors, more directors, etc., seeing the actor first and the role second.
Yes.
You know, and whether someone is 6'2" or 5'8", are they charming, charismatic, can sing, can dance, and are wonderful? Great, let's give it to that job rather than, oh, no, I'm too worried about the poster. Because
It's the same as life. It's the same as with life. If you're not necessarily attracted to the most physically attractive person in the room. If someone's
my exes, all of them.
Yeah. But, yeah, if someone's stunningly beautiful but lacks any kind of charm, tact, charisma, you don't find them attractive. You just like to look at them while they're not looking at you.
Yeah.
And then you leave and you forget them.
I was with a very famous producer once. This is a terrible story, but it might make somebody laugh at home. Somebody said to me, no, I won't do a voice. Andrew, what is the point of the opening number of a musical? And I said, well, usually it's to set the tone and location and situation of the musical that you're in, or the backdrop of the world, or whatever. He said, no, you're absolutely wrong. The point of the opening number is for the audience to decide which chorus boy they want to fuck first. And that was when I went, wow, that's genuinely what you think an audience is doing. How archaic.
Yeah.
But, you know, well, listeners, what do you think? Do you think that pigeonholing is absolutely reasonable? Or do you think it's about time that things were updated? Please do tweet the show at Show People UK, or you can join in the Show People Podcast Listeners Forum at facebook.com/Show People Podcast.
This is Kumiko Mendel, Artistic Director of Yellow Earth Theatre. You are listening to the Show People Podcast with Andrew Keates.
Alistair Brammer, let's start at the very beginning.
A very good place to start.
Very
I
good.
bet every single person says that, do they?
If they don't, they're kicked off the show instantaneously.
Okay, good.
So rather excitingly, I've been reading about you. I was reading the Exmouth Journal.
Yes, that is my little local paper.
I was reading all about it.
Yeah.
Originally from Exmouth in Devon. Now, how do I put this tactfully? You are the youngest of 7 children.
Yes, I am.
7?
I'm 7th.
You really are the Von Trapp family.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, less Nazis and Germans.
Yeah, there's very few Nazis in my
Nazis
hometown
in
anymore. Yeah, they've all left. Yeah.
So what was it like growing up? You're being the youngest, being the Liesel of the Brammer family.
I couldn't shuffle up the stairs in the same way that she can.
No.
But on my bum.
Yes.
But no, do you know what? I always think, because none of my family are singers or actors or involved at all. And I think that's probably why I ended up being one, because when you're the smallest in a house of 7 people, you have to shout to be heard. I had a stammer for the first 15 years of my life. I've still got a little tiny one every now and again. It just pops out, but it's not debilitating.
Yes, debilitating.
Yeah. It doesn't cock anything up.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But I did, and I think that's why.
How did you deal with that? Just out of interest.
Honestly, just thinking about it and just going, stop it, and just trying to. You know, I still now, if I get excited, if I'm telling a joke, the worst part of the joke is the punchline, because I get to that point and I'm so excited to make people laugh, and then it sort of doesn't. I stumble on it. But yeah, I think that's definitely why. It was because being the youngest of 7. If you didn't shout and talk quickly, if there was ever a gap, a lot of my family talk fast, and it's because if there was a gap in the silence and you wanted to ask for a packet of crisps, it was please have a packet of crisps. You had to, otherwise you weren't heard.
We both have. I didn't have 7 in my family, but that's possibly why we both have quite fast internal rhythms. You and I sort of talking. I've noticed people are probably going, "How do we slow this podcast down?"
Yeah, just get it to 0.5 speed. It's true. I'm a little bit like my brain works like that too. It's a bit like a ping pong table, not ping pong, pinball table.
Yeah.
And sort of something will catch my eye, and then.
In that, just in case somebody's already asked, are you either dyspraxic or dyslexic?
No, I'm not.
Have you ever been tested for it?
No.
Do you find coordination quite difficult?
I don't think so. I've got sort of some weird little mathematical things I can do. So I'm probably a bit Asperger's or something.
Yeah, because when I was at drama school, like the idea of, I mean, dance was just a thing of misery for me. The idea.
Yeah, I'm not a dancer, no.
But my head would always work extraordinarily fast. So if we did like a word game, you say one word to me, my head will immediately branch off to like 100 different possibilities of what connects all those different words.
Yeah.
And to talk,
Yeah.
I find myself having to talk through all 100 different things before I get to the point.
Yes.
I wonder if it's a similar brain
I
thing.
do constantly do things. Like I used to wait for the bus, and I used to love that the 19 bus came just before the 38, which is half.
Yeah.
And we're constantly looking around in life and seeing things like that, and trying to. A thing that I do sometimes if I'm not thinking, which is weird because you would think it would be an active thing, is I'll try and balance words in my head. So if A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. I'll start to think, okay, show people. So S is 19, H is 8, O is 15, W is 23. So I'll go to 23 plus 8 would be. So if I do SOHW, and I go, okay, that doesn't work. So it doesn't even, I can't balance the word.
I mean, we're basically just saying you're a genius, aren't we? We're just saying Alistair Brammer is probably Mozart reincarnated.
Or a bit mad. Yeah, I remember, I just made myself sound really, really mental, haven't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
It's fine, as long as everyone's got that. So when was your first experience of the theatre?
What my first experience? I saw a panto when I was 14.
I know you didn't.
Snow White. I was going to. I'm not going to give him it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go against it.
It's fine. Go against the grain.
Yeah. Oh yes, he did. There we go. Sorry, I had to get out. That's creepy. Do it again. It sounds like one of these dolls. It's like.
What it does is it sounds like a very slow roller coaster. Just, like, because I'm from Dorset, I know you're from Devon, but you know how you'd have like these sort of slightly carny, like, adventure
dodgy
lands.
things that unfold out of the back of a truck.
Yeah, and you would just go on like a roller coaster, you would just do a sort of a dip. That's the sound that comes to mind.
And those sort of dodgy little cartoons that sort of look like the ones that you get on like children's walls, like a slightly wonky face.
And they'd all be sort of bad Mickey, or a bad Mickey Mouse with sort of
Dumbo with like a red trunk or something weird for some reason. Do the sound one more time.
It's the end bit. For listeners who listen to you, I have an iPad next to me which is loaded with all sorts of sounds, which is where when I'm talking to a guest, they do genuinely hear it. So very good. Yay! Oh, so say about you wanting to do just desperate to get a punchline out again.
Yeah. What do I need to do? Oh, okay. Yeah, I just can't do it. I know. It was really
That one's dark though. That sound effect is really dark because it's like, and then some fucker laughs at the end.
Do it again.
Listen really closely. Evil sound effect, actually.
Oh,
it's bleak, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really horrible. It's like the guy that did it.
Yeah.
It's like the guy that did the stabbing, or
what was I saying to you?
That would be a weird reaction if someone got stabbed and you went, oh. like they just kissed on something.
Well, they kind of do that in Les Mis when Eponine gets shot. Or the worst thing is every time I've seen Gavroche get shot, I've always heard someone nervously laugh. Like, whenever he sings, little people. You always hear it. And you just say, yeah, you do. That sounded remarkably like Stevie Webb, actually. That's the sort of thing I could hear. But yeah, so going back. So you, one of 7 children.
Yeah.
First thing you saw was a panto. Mm-hmm. Was it Les Mis and Miss Saigon that you were listening to whilst counting thousands of cars turning left?
No. So what was it? I remember I saw a panto and didn't think of anything of it. I tell you what, I remember my first experience with drama, not going to the theatre, was when I went to secondary school. So I was 11, and there was this thing called drama on my schedule, and I didn't know what it was.
No, I
literally didn't know what it was. And then I went to this class, and we had to pretend to have a debate. And I was like, but that's not my opinion. I don't know. I necessarily think. I mean, I was 11, but I was like thinking, but why am I arguing for a thing that's not? And they were like, well, it's what acting. You're pretending that you've got this opinion. I was like, oh, okay. So you're on the committee for the thing, and I started going, oh, so I'm like being like not me. And then I sort of went, is that what all those people on TV are doing? Genuinely, I didn't understand. I just thought they lived in Albert Square.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
Jesus.
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't understand it. And so then I really loved it, and I took to it like a duck to water, and I was like the teachers because I just loved it, and she loved that I loved it. That's all teachers want, is to teach you to love something,
Now, was I right in reading? I could have, because I've been reading all sorts of things about you. Is it your mum that worked at a college. Am I right in thinking that?
A college. She was.
Was it Exmouth College? Was she?
No, my mum was a teaching assistant in my primary school.
That's it. I knew she was a teacher in some way or another connected to you.
Yeah.
Although in my mind I was like, oh, was she involved in theatre and that's what inspired you?
Not at all. No, not at all. It was just my teachers. And then when I was about 15, my friend was in this thing called Centre Stage, which was an amateur dramatics group in Exmouth for children. And she said, we're doing Oliver. And I'd never heard of that. And she was like, you should come watch it. So I went and watched it and I couldn't believe it. Somehow managed to get a real tavern onto the stage, and these guys came down ladders and things that were part of the whole set blew me away, and I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, I want to be part of that.
Do you still get that feeling even now when you see that when you saw that helicopter coming in?
When I see something extraordinary, it's obviously as you get older you get fussier and you sort of know more and you go, oh, I've seen that before.
24 cats dancing, right. Give me some dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I've a time that I've been astounded recently. We saw La Boheme at the Met in New York, and the set of the Zeffirelli version of La Boheme, it's just looks like a different world. And they have a chorus who doesn't speak or anything of like 150. They have camels on stage, horses. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
and that blew me away. They had snow. It looked like real snow. It was just unbelievable. But yeah, so that was my first experience with seeing that, and then I joined the company, and then our first show was the Pirates of Penzance.
What did you play?
Samuel, the pirate's lieutenant.
So they believed in you, but were just like, well, what about if he's
not the lead,
not quite the lead?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't really sing then. I just sort of could sing in tune. But
so you weren't even involved in music or anything as a boy growing up?
Absolutely no way at all. No.
So I'm going to talk about something now, which I think is a bit sad, but ended up turning out for the best.
Okay.
Tell me about competing in Any Dream Will Do.
Don't.
I know.
This has plagued me for my whole... Okay.
I know. Yeah. I mean, obviously...
Do you know what? Actually, that's actually really not fair of you, Andrew, to do this. Okay.
I won't.
No, so how old was I? 18? Yeah, auditioned. Got down to the final 20, to the nub.
Yeah.
Went over to Andrew's Castle in Ireland.
I know, that's my favourite thing I read. Andrew Lloyd Webber's castle. I went, since when did Andrew Lloyd Webber have a castle?
Oh, a staggeringly huge castle in, I think, Cork.
What's it called? Can you remember?
Something like Skellen, Kelly.
It's quite a long name.
It's E's and K's and L's.
Okay, just look up some vowels.
Just elk.
Elk Castle.
Yeah, and so I got there and I didn't get the job, and then the job didn't make the finals. But genuinely, it couldn't have worked out any better because I would imagine it's quite hard to shake that off. You know, some people have gone on to do very well from them. My very good friend of mine, Sam, is now a huge Broadway actress and film actress. Sam Barks. A bunch of people have done very well from it, but I know a lot of people that haven't, and I just think that by not having it attached to your name, I was on the screen for about 4 seconds in total. You know, you get to start again from scratch and sort of know that you've earned it, and it's nice. You know,
but you obviously impressed because it was it Bill Kenwright?
So he said to me as I was voted out, he said, "But look, I would love you. I've got auditions coming up for the tour, and I'd love you to do it." And
okay.
So I went back. I'd taken some time off my A levels at the time. I was that young. Oh, I was really young. And I went back and finished them off, and I thought, right, I'll call up Bill Kenwright and get this audition. And they said it's been and gone. Oh. And I was like, oh no! So I started working. I started working over the summer, and then a friend of mine happened to say, "Hey, are you going to this?" Or this was about 5 months later. Are you going to go to the auditions for Joseph? I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, they're going to recast again now." So I called up and they got me in. And then 3 days later, I had to move to Edinburgh to start rehearsals.
Because I was reading, because again, do look this up, listeners, in the Exmouth Journal, your mum is very, very proud. In fact, even names the road you guys live on, which I think is a bit dodge.
Yeah.
But it was lovely when your mum is like, oh, he's really, really delighted to be, paid for what he's doing. He does 2 shows a day, Monday to Friday, and 3 shows on Saturday and Sunday. And I was just like... I'm not sure how thrilled he'll be in about 6 months' time after doing this contract.
I didn't know any different. Imagine being an 18-year-old working in an office in a job that you hate, sometimes just to see what happens, not doing any work all day, and consciously, and realizing that makes no difference to the whole way things work at all. So that useless feeling, just to suddenly going and earning 3 times the amount of money, doing something that does not feel like work at all.
No.
It was a dream come true. They could have told me, yeah, but you have to do 25 shows a week, and I wouldn't have cared.
Because I had a friend who was newly in that particular production's tour, and
It's still going.
and it's still going, inflatable sheep and all. And I remember him saying to me, I said, "When do you feel like you're getting to on a 3-show day? When do you feel like you're finally getting to the end?" And he said, "Andrew, when you get to the end of the second time that day of the Joseph Megamix, and you know you've got to do it all over again, that's when you start going, I don't think I can do the show anymore." And he said that there's something just comes in. It's like, the second Joseph Megamix, we're really doing this again? How are we going to do this again?
The Megamix is 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's a huge dance number. It's all the...
I've always wanted it for my I've always wanted it for my funeral. I mean,
it would be great.
It's a triumph.
Yeah, it's this extraordinary thing. But I suppose if you look at it a different way, it was 12 shows a week. I did 12 shows a week, and 8 is normally the maximum.
Yeah.
But that show is so incredibly short. It's an hour and 40, I think.
Is that all it is?
Yeah. I remember watching, God love him, he won't mind me saying this, Lee Mead, who played Joseph in the West End production. He won the BBC programme.
I've heard of him.
Yes. For those of you who haven't, yeah. And he just wasn't, God love him, he wasn't very media trained. And on the red carpet, just from what I see, maybe he was, but he was disastrous at it. He really wouldn't mind me saying. And they said, "So why should people come and see Joseph in the West End? What is it that families should go?" And he went, "Well, it's quite short." As if you just want it to be over when you go and see something.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point.
But it is quite short. The first act is sort of less than an hour, and the second act is 40 minutes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Alistair, the older I get, the more I long for a programme that says 70 minutes straight through with no intervals. Sometimes that can be a wonderful thing.
I know. I remember I went to a wedding once, and the speeches were sort of 3 hours. And the best bit of advice I've ever got, and I used it on my wedding day, was I've never heard a speech that's too short.
No, neither have I.
I never have. Actually, good point. I never have.
No.
When someone says, "Thank you so much, this is a real honour, I'd like to thank my team. Thank you." You go, "Brilliant."
Lovely.
That's it. That's all you need to say.
Going from Any Dream Will Do, did you feel like you had ever... Did you feel you'd lost out on the opportunity to go to drama school and to train? Or have you just looked back and gone, hell, do you know what? I learned on the job. I feel like I've got everything I needed.
I do feel like I absolutely learned on the job. I wouldn't change it.
No.
Because it's turned out okay. But there are certain things. It's a shame that I don't know all of the classics in and out, back to front, like a lot of people that went to RADA or LAMDA do. I do know my Shakespeare, but not to the extent that a lot of these young guys coming fresh out of drama school do. And so many of these plays, the Greek plays, are the basis of, all the drama. Mm-hmm. So to have that knowledge, I've had to go out and hunt that out myself. And it would have been cool to just do a year of someone saying what's the most important stuff, what's the most valuable stuff, because otherwise you're learning in the dark and you don't know what's important and what's not.
So you're actively still seeking out you don't feel like you know it all. You're actively seeking out extra things.
That's the joy of this job, is that there are things you don't know, and there's nothing better than reading a good play and then sort of picturing yourself in it, fantasizing about what you want to do. I think you have to keep, and this is whenever I do a sort of Q&A with sort of young children and things, I always say, keep learning. Yeah. Just keep learning. You never know anything. And people like Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi still do that. They still go and read new plays by new writers, and they're interested in it. Yeah. And how rare is it that you get to do a job where to learn about your job is simply reading interesting stories and watching films and listening to music. That's research. What a joy. Other people have to go and learn about stocks and shares. You know what I mean? We don't have to do that. It's great.
I'm going to be talking to Alistair about some of his earliest jobs. But now, just a little message from this fan of the show.
Hello, this is Steve First, and you are listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates. A man so marvellous, he's putting bums on seats. Whether it be parakeets eating halal meats or premier athletes submitting VAT receipts. It's the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates.
Now, in 2009, you made your West End debut, according to Wikipedia, in Les Mis, where you spent 18 months in the role of Marius.
Yes.
What was it about the role? What was it? What was that experience like?
Well, it was my third show I did with Centre Stage in Exmouth, and it was my first leading role with them. And I always just loved the role. I love Empty Chairs. I think it's an amazing song. I think it's an underrated song, actually.
Me too.
I think it's so lovely. And Eddie was amazing at it in the film. I think it's just fantastic. But I just loved it, and of course I heard the music and fell in love with it, and just thought it's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And so when I finished the Joseph tour, I had this agent, and he said, "What about doing this? What about auditioning for this?" And I did, and I was originally auditioning for understudy Marius, and I got a call to say they don't think you're ready, you haven't got it. Sorry, it was to be one of the students and understudy. And then about a week later, I was about to go on holiday, and I got a call saying they actually would like to see you again for the role.
It's always when you book a holiday, isn't it?
Yeah, always.
My advice to any listener to this show, if you want a guaranteed job or a guaranteed audition, book a holiday. You will get an audition the next week.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
So did you cancel your holiday?
I just went. I rebooked my flight and went 2 days later, and it turned a week into 5 days. That's all. But I went to the audition, between me and two other guys, and I got the call as I was on the train to the airport. So it was the best holiday ever. Any of the money that I had left from the tour, I just spent on that holiday, and just just went mad. Yeah, it was great.
Where did you go?
Lanzarote.
Oh wow! It's either that or Marbella. I can see it in your eyes.
Marbs.
And what did you take away from that show? What did you learn? I mean, 18 months is such a long time.
I tell you what, I learned in hindsight was that I wasn't quite ready.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you struggle with?
It was. I just think it's funny, isn't it, that your memory of yourself at a certain point, the older you get and the more you learn about singing, and you start to realise that you weren't as good as you thought you were. I remember when I was doing shows when I was 16 in my hometown, I thought I was the best actor and singer in the world. Yeah. I was convinced I could hit any note I wanted, do any kind of, if I wanted to make a choice, I made it, and I was strong in it, and it was the best choice. Now I go, if I saw that on video, I would be crying with pain, because it would be awful. But I was making choices for the wrong reasons, and I was thinking about singing and it was just, I wasn't quite ready. But
then on the other side of that, there are times actually where our neuroses can inflict us so much that actually the older we get, the more we forget what it means to just play sometimes.
Totally, completely.
And you sometimes have, I look back on, I'm sure some of my early work was probably terrible, but it always came from a place of passion and love. Mm-hmm. And maybe I didn't realize that, as much as I know about Grotowski now and whatever, but sometimes I have to go back when I'm directing a show and look at it and go, what would my 13-year-old self love to happen right now? Because if I can make the childish part of me, or the child inside me happy, I can probably make audiences happy.
Well, I had to do exactly that sort of thing. I got asked to go and play Honduras in Dubai to open the Opera House, which was amazing. Yeah. It's this huge theatre. Every seat was made out of Ferrari leather and was about twice the width of a West End seat.
I mean, do theatre seats need to be made out of Ferrari leather?
Of course not, but it's Dubai. So they had a Swarovski chandelier the size of a room. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Amazing theatre, and we were the first musical to do it, so it was amazing. It was me, John Owen Jones playing Valjean, Peter Policarpi playing Thénardier, Carrie Hope Fletcher. I mean, unbelievable, amazing. And I got into that rehearsal room, and I've never been more scared in my life.
Really?
And that was only 2 years ago, 18 months ago. It was just I'm not a natural fit vocally for it. I think that Chris is very different to Andras. Andras is, whereas Chris is much more light, which is where I sit more naturally in a poppier place. So I turned up on day one and I was terrified, and I thought, I can't do this, I can't do it. And it took a lot for me to go, do you know what? Get over it. You sound fine. Maybe you don't sound how you want to sound, but actually your director isn't complaining, and you've got time to rehearse this and just do it. And just think about the story. You're getting to play this guy who gets to wear this red waistcoat and carry a gun and lead the revolution. How cool is this? Yeah. If your 16-year-old self would be looking at you going, just play, what are you doing? Stop worrying about it. Yeah. So that's what I had to do with that. And it was actually a hard process, but I got it. By the end, I was like, I'm all right at Honduras, actually. I'm not the shitstorm I thought I was at the start.
What do you have? I mean, I know you're married. Do you have people that you go to when you're like, when you get yourself into that place? Do you pick up the phone to your mum, or do you go to the pub with your mates?
No, do you know what? I tend to keep it in my head.
That's probably the problem.
I bottle it up. Yeah, I sometimes I'll talk to my wife about things and I'll say it's so unfair. But actually, what I find when I'm in that place, which isn't all the time, sometimes, and actually it's more when I'm just playing a character. When I'm not singing, I feel a lot more confident. I don't know why. I just feel very comfortable playing a character.
Which is so nuts, because from my perspective, and I know most people that talk about you have such a God-given, beautiful voice. So it's for the idea of you being upset about the sound that you make, for me, sounds utterly alien. But of course, I'm not in your head.
Thanks, yeah. No, well, that's really kind. But yeah, it's just, and what I find is when I'm in that place in my head, where I'm not sure about something or where something's not quite working, if I do express it to someone, whatever they say annoys me. whether they absolutely support me and say, darling, listen, it's just going to be, oh, you don't understand. If they say,
are you the same at home when it's like, why haven't you done the dishes? You don't understand.
No, well, that's just, because I know what my jobs are at home. It's very simple. I do the dishes. I do the.
Do you literally have
the trash?
Do you have like a? You said trash.
Oh,
You've been away.
Oh no,
it's been away. What happened to British Alistair Brammer?
Oh God, don't.
I like the idea that your wife has a sort of call sheet for you that says,
oh yeah,
from getting home, empty dishwasher. Buy flowers.
Yeah. Well, I do flowers without being told. Press the button.
Which one?
Surely.
We can do an no. It's a.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I get a point for that.
You do get a point.
Brownie point. That's the brownie point button.
It's a brownie point button.
Yeah. No. I've got my jobs at home for sure. For sure, it's taking out the bins and it's washing up. And
why is that always the boys' job? I mean, admittedly, I'm engaged to a bloke, so it's always going to be a boy's job in this house. But why does it always end up to be the?
Do you know what it is? I tell you why, because you have to leave the house and brace the cold.
But I know plenty of women who are as hard as nails.
Oh, I know. But my wife doesn't like to be cold.
No.
And I would say that, is it fair to say that in most heterosexual relationships, the man will give his cardigans because they do feel the cold more?
Depends how cold it is.
Yeah, I suppose.
I know you're shivering, but it is
that's
very cold.
Certainly been true in my relationships in the past. It's always been that I have to give my coat. I don't feel the cold very much.
So a gentleman as well as a leading man.
Sure. I mean, just because I get hot, actually.
Yeah, actually, it's nothing to do with chivalry.
Yeah.
So let's move over to
move on from this nonsense.
Wait, move on from this utter gibberish. Yeah. No, I found a really lovely quote from you about Les Mis that said, "I should be sick to death of the show, but I can't get over it. It's my favourite." That can have a.
Oh, stop it!
That's really nice.
Thanks, guys.
But from there, of course, you would then go on to play. Is it Jean Prouvaire?
Yes.
Did I say it right?
Yes, Jean Prouvaire.
So okay, so going from let's talk a little bit about the film. So, how wonderful was it to be reunited? I know with old cast members from the show, for example, and obviously working with the likes of Eddie Redmayne, Russell Crowe,
Hugh Jackman.
I mean, I'm not going to do a ping or an X depending on what cast member, but everybody was in that show.
Yeah.
I mean, even only the other day, it was on, funny enough, and I was like, oh, hang on, that's Dan Evans, which I didn't realise.
Yeah, he was a pimp, right?
Just turns up from somewhere. Mike Gibson, Caroline Sheen, everywhere you look, there's somebody. Francis Raphael.
I know.
How did you feel about your contribution to making that legacy of a movie? We
had the best time. I mean, I'd never done a film before, and I couldn't believe the scale of it. That street that we fought on the barricade was indoors. These things that you just go, what? You just assume that they did it in a. I mean, and then you appreciate things like post about how they put people into crowd scenes and how you go, they weren't there, and it looks absolutely amazing. And it was just being around all those people, all these amazing people. It was just watching and learning. And I'll give you an example. So we were doing the barricade, the big finale, the final fight. Is that what they call it? Anyway.
I don't know. You were only in the show 4 times.
The final battle, I think it was the final battle. And I had it was me, Eddie Redmayne, Aaron Tveit, Hugh Skinner, who he's a
I know Hugh.
fantastic actor, yeah. And we were all on the top of this thing, and we each had there was 6 cameras, camera A to F, and we each had a camera on us, just a single, just to capture some action stuff. Great. And so we did a take and just sort of loading guns, shooting guns, loading guns, shooting guns, aiming, punching, doing the thing. And we went back to watch the rushes or watch the footage, and I looked at Eddie's, and his eyes were up the whole time, and he was sort of, even when he was loading his gun, his eyes were forward, right, just off camera, looking towards the action. The whole time, my head was down. All you could see was the top of my head.
Oh.
Because I was reloading my gun for real. So I was actually pouring the gunpowder into the thing, and then putting the bullet in, and then using the rod to push it down, then the pulling back the flint. But what Eddie knew was that they can add all the flashes and stuff in post. The gun doesn't have to work. I remember we got called back 3 weeks after finishing the Les Mis film to do they had to reshoot our deaths because they lost some of the footage or something. I can't remember why, but anyway, they had to reshoot some of our deaths. And it was at the very end of the battle when we were all got blood all over our faces, covered in dirt, dust, and we're supposed to be shaking because we're not actually soldiers at all. We're students. And at the end of the actual take, the previous takes, we were there anyway because we'd done this long take, amazing with these cameras. But then we came back 3 weeks later and they said, right, okay, we're going to go towards just from the very end of the battle, just before you die. So you're like, hang on. So I need to get into this sort of shaky, scared, terrified, haunting, and action. And it was, and just that expectation, just go. You couldn't get yourself there, whereas in a play, you get 3 hours to do that. Mm. So it's a completely different ballgame.
And I suppose you feel so much more in control. Do you know what I mean? When you're on stage, regardless of however, idiots like me decide to, light you and play and whatever, at the end of the day, the actor always feels central to making the decisions that are happening on that stage, regardless of whatever work has come before or whatever. Whereas on this, you could be acting your socks off. My friend has just been in a big old film, and God bless him, watched said film and had to go to the party afterwards, and people went, "Oh, were you in it?" Because you'd been cut.
Yeah.
There was no need for someone to say, "Oh, by the way, you're not in it," because it was, this footage is unnecessary. Don't need that to tell the story.
Yeah.
And
it's cold like that.
For one's ego, that's utterly devastating. But from the director's point of view, it's like, well, if it doesn't tell the story, I ain't going to use it.
It's useless. Yeah. When we cut Drink With Me to about a quarter of the length of the actual song because they didn't need it to tell the story. So they just did one chorus to just show that we're all together. But I had a friend who, quite a sort of well-known actor, I won't say who it is, but he did a film and he was playing a sort of sergeant, not a sergeant, a sort of CIA guy, and he had to make a choice to either kill someone or not. And they said, "What do we do, Mr. Smith?" And he left his pause and went, "Do it," and kill him, do it. And then when it came to the take, it went, "What should we do, Mr. Smith? Do it." So it completely, it made him look like an absolute arsehole.
Yeah.
Whereas actually what he wanted to show was that he had this really tough choice to make. And they just, because they had to cut that 10-second pause out for time. And it completely changed his character.
Keep listening. I'm going to be talking to Alistair about what it was like to appear in the West End production of Warhorse. But before that, it's now time for dramatic news. Today's top stories. Les Miserables has announced its new cast. From the 11th of June 2018, Dean Chisnell will take over as Jean Valjean. Toby Miles will play Marius, Elena Skye will play Eponine, Vivian Parry will play Madame Thénardier, and Amara Okereke will play Cosette. Agent Gemma Hamilton has apologised after making a comment in a private forum criticising spotlight breakdowns for black, Asian or minority ethnic actors because they put talented white performers out of work. She went on to say she was bored of breakdowns asking for BAME actors because it adds that va-va-voom to the cast list. And now I see a breakdown for BAME-only actors that are actor musos. It's putting talented white performers out of work. I think it stinks. After much criticism online, Gemma Hamilton has apologised by saying the following. I was actually trying to express how all actors should be considered equal regardless of their ethnicity. We have a plethora of talented actors of all ethnicities and I want them to have the same opportunities. I absolutely do apologise for the wording used and it was entirely not how I meant it to sound, but I was posting to a private group who know my character. I agree we have a long way to go and actors should always be cast on their talent as opposed to their appearance. Musical Bites will return for a third time at the Other Palace in association with Mercury Musical Developments on Saturday the 12th of May. Audiences will be presented with 15 minutes of each piece, getting a bite of new musicals by inspiring new writers. Just some of the performers include Rachel Tucker, Liam Tamney, Pippa Duffy, John Boyden, Liz Ewing, Rennie Lamb, Sally Banks, Rachel Bell and more. The lineup includes Lucky from the Riveters by Katie Mulgrew and Vicky Stone, Terror at the Sweet Shop by Gavin Brock and Nicola Rivers, Operation Mincemeat by Zoe Roberts, David Cumming, Natasha Hodgson and Felix Hagen, Chromatics by Shauna Carrick, and Killer Queen by Tasha Taylor-Johnson, John McManus and Johnny Wright. The pieces will be directed by Ricky Beadle-Blair and Andrew Keates, whoever the hell he is. Throughout the evening, audiences will also be invited to provide their feedback on each musical taster with an innovative feedback app. For more information and to book tickets, visit theotherpalace.co.uk. Have you got a news story that you'd like us to know about? Well, just email info@arian-productions.com.
Hi, I'm Alex from Theatre Counts. Hopefully you know by now that we are the go-to accountants for the entertainment industry. Here is our tax tip of the week. Are you aware of what costs you can claim on your tax return? We've got a quick list to run through with some examples. Costs you may be able to claim are agent's commission, travel expenses, accommodation and food, costumes, clothing and props, postage and stationery, computer equipment and consumables, so a Mac, a laptop, camera or software, home telephone and mobile phone costs, internet costs, accountancy fees, equity, Casting Call Pro, the Actors Guild, subscriptions, spotlight fees, website costs, showreel costs, headshots, hair, beauty expenses, professional training and workshops, professional lessons, research costs such as a theatre or cinema, or using your home as an office. Obviously, not all of these costs will be relevant to you, but it's a good start and we wouldn't want you to miss any. If you're considering an accountant for the first time or you are thinking of moving accountants, it couldn't be easier to join us. Please get in touch for a free chat. You can contact us via our website www.theatrecounts.co.uk and you can follow us on Twitter @theatrecounts. If you are a new client to us, we will also give you a discount off your first year's fee. Just quote the Show People podcast.
This is West End producer, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with the sumptuous, the savoury, and the slightly sugary Andrew Keates. Dear.
So we've chatted about Les Miserables and how big that has been as part of your career. But actually, what I think is one of the most underrated musicals, which I absolutely adore, and such an interesting production, was Taboo at the Brixton Club House. Take us through. For those who don't know, what is Taboo about?
Taboo is it's all about Boy George and the start of his career in the early 80s. Yeah. And he was very open. He was into a lot of drugs, and it's about the sort of the trans scene and the gay scene in that time. And my character was a character called Billy, who was heterosexual, but then sort of starts to have feelings for a girl played by Neve Perry, but also Boy George. So it's a show. I think it's a bit of a coming of age thing.
What did you love about the show? What did you find interesting about playing Billy?
Well, so it was funny. It was straight after the Les Mis film. After I'd been filming it, so I had some money, and then it was like this thing came up, and it wasn't paying much money. You know, it was a small production, 160 seats, and it was just there was, as soon as I saw the space, I thought this is going to be really cool. We had sort of walkways, so that the audience would have to turn their heads to see what was going on, or sometimes have to turn their entire chair around to watch. And so it was happening all around them. There was a working bar in the room that they could go up to.
A properly immersive production.
It really was immersive. And I haven't seen many of them, actually. I tend to see sort of big things, rightly or wrongly, I do. And And I've never seen, or not necessarily big, but I see things in a standard way, as in proscenium arch or traverse or something cool, but never to be in the world in that way was to me new. I couldn't believe it. And so that was really, really cool.
Well, no, one of my favourite songs in the show is Stranger in This World, which I think is just one of the most wonderful songs.
It's amazing. I sang it at a concert because it was a song that is in the show, as you know, it's sung by Boy George. But yeah, I was always really jealous because the lyric is amazing. There's a fantastic lyric in it where it says, on a clear day, I can see myself for miles.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
It's wonderful. It's poetry.
That's really lovely, yeah.
And Illador, that's another song in it, which I just find, utterly heartbreaking. Lee Bowery, isn't it, is obviously, who was, again, a real life fashionista, fashion designer, club boy. I really do believe it's a real undervalued show.
It's got, I think the reason might be, I think the reason why it's undervalued, I think, is because the music is very catchy, poppy, simple music.
Yeah.
But that doesn't bother me if it tells a story in the right way. I mean, Karma Chameleon wasn't a work of genius. It was just an amazingly catchy song.
Absolutely.
And that's what they're known for. So
Imagine is not the most complicated song ever written, but it's also one of the greatest, in my opinion.
Yes, he's absolutely right. I think sometimes simple songs are the best songs. There's a fantastic song where all of the songs that you've heard so far, you sort of hear them come together in this in Act 2 when they're all kind of at their deepest, darkest moment of despair. They think it's an amazing quartet or quintet. And I just think it works fantastically, and I think there's nothing wrong with hearing catchy music.
So, from talking about men and women wanting to take your clothes off, let's talk about you taking your own clothes off in Hair, of course.
Oh yes.
So Hair, I've got here. You did now. Hang on a sec. You were in the Tribe. Did you cover Claude as well?
I did. Yeah. I honestly can say I don't remember.
Really?
It's the weirdest thing for me. This I'd finished Les Mis and was didn't work for a few months, and then got this call, and it was over Christmas. To go around all these different lovely European countries where they'd have wonderful Weihnachtsmarkts or Christmas markets and things, and I thought that would be fun. And it, arguably I shouldn't have necessarily gone from playing a West End leading man to ensemble in Hair on tour around Europe, but the idea of going around to all these snowy countries, I thought that was going to be really fun, and so I went and did it. But the memory of it's the weirdest thing. I just don't really remember it.
Do you think you found yourself being as lovely as the countries were from going from such a big role? Did you find yourself maybe in a bit of a depression, kind of going from this high to actually I'm not
didn't
doing
find it.
anything?
I found it socially really fun. It was like cool people and just sort of hanging out. I'll tell you what it was. It was going back to how my life was when I was doing Joseph. When I was 19, going around the country and playing at one of the brothers, where you could go out and have a few drinks, and you do when you're 19, and come back and do the show the next day, do 3 shows the next day. And then suddenly I got married and did that for 18 months and knuckled down and didn't go out and drink and things like that quite anywhere near as much as I did. And then suddenly I got this job and I could do that again. And I think I let 18 months of being careful go on that job. And so when I say I don't remember it, I think I probably mean I was drunk for a little bit, actually, when I'm being honest.
I didn't want to put words in your mouth. But...
Yeah, but I got that out of my system on that. And ever since that job, I've just sort of, I'm kind of over all that going out and drink. I don't really do it anymore, particularly now that I'm married, and it's just not part of my life anymore, really. Yeah, going out and getting drunk. Maybe once in a blue moon I'll go to someone's birthday or something,
And would you say from one fabulous little production to what I think is maybe historically inaccurate in places, but undoubtedly one of the most beautiful theatrical productions in my lifetime, the West End production of Warhorse?
Oh my goodness, my favourite job.
Is it really?
The camaraderie that you get from that
just
job.
just so people who don't know, I know Warhorse is now a global phenomenon, but there might still be people going, I've heard about that play, what is it? Just sum up Warhorse.
A lot of people have seen the film and they don't know what the play is. No, it's a story of a boy and his horse, and the horse gets taken to the First World War, and so the boy, he's in love with this horse. He adores. He's had it since it was a calf, and so he decides to join up and go and find his horse.
Pony.
and it sounds it's his little Shire horse, and it sounds sort of a little bit it sounds a bit sort of over emotional, but the whole story was told with puppets and the
Handspring,
puppetry,
wasn't it?
Handspring, yes, it's a South African company, and they were absolutely. I mean, there was no acting required. I would play Albert often and just look at it and just think, I don't have to act. I don't have to pretend there's a horse there. There is a horse there.
Have you seen that there are YouTube clips out there where I've been sort of connected with all sorts of people in Warhorse, so I've seen a lot of the puppets, and I for various reasons. Mm-hmm. But there are some fabulous clips out there where Joey has been taken out, say, for some royal procession, and then there's a real horse, and they'll start nuzzling each other and communicating, and
it's the weirdest thing.
It's wonderful.
So my audition was the most amazing audition. They said, we did these exercises. So I did a couple of auditions, just went into read the play, read with them, and then my final audition was on stage at the New London Theatre, and
now the Gillian Lynn.
Oh, really? Oh, yes, it's changed names, isn't it? Amazing, the Gillian Lynn.
The Gillian Lynn.
Quite right, actually. That's great.
Yeah.
And so they brought out this horse, and they didn't introduce me to the puppeteers. They just said, okay, Joey, they called in the horse, and in comes the horse.
I like the idea that Joey's just like stubbing out a fag. Ugh, another audition draft.
Yeah, my goodness me, I've just done this twice. Yeah, exactly. So in walks Joey, and they say, right, Joey's sad, you have to cheer him up. Go.
Oh.
And so I went over, and then this horse didn't like me, it didn't know me. So it sort of backed off, and
sounds heartbreaking.
And so I was like, okay, I've got to be more careful. Maybe if I approach him more gently, and there were some things he doesn't like if you put your hand out towards him with your fingers splayed, actually that looks like a wolf to them, and they don't like that. So you have to keep your fingers together, and so all these things you start learning. Go, okay, he doesn't like. So over about 5 minutes of just me and the horse on stage, I ended up walking backwards towards him and sort of putting my hand out, and I wasn't told any of this. I just had to learn it. And then they did the opposite thing. They said, okay, great, thank you. And now you're annoyed, and Joey has to try and cheer you up. And so they flipped it. So I was sat in the corner. I didn't want to speak to him. And he was being so gentle. And I was just going, not now, Joey, And it was the weirdest, but the most amazing audition I've ever done.
This literally sounds like, I think, every child's dream. Like, certainly the majesty of that production, told beautifully with puppets, lights, and damn fine actors. And
not much else, by the way.
Not much else.
Black stage, just a stark black stage.
I mean, it's the definition of a black box show. That's it. I mean, I know there's the projection.
Yes.
Chris Schutt's brilliant sound design. And I have to say, the live band for me really helps. I've seen it with live musicians. I've also seen it with the recorded music, and I'll be honest with you, it's better. It is just better with the live musicians.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful story of friendship.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And there really is something. Everyone was someone else's understudy. Everyone.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you were playing the lead, Albert. He understudied parts of my track, and I understudied Albert. I also understudied 3 other roles that I would often go on as.
So what roles did you frequently play, and what were the ones that you enjoyed most of all?
Billy was my role I was cast as. I was also first cover Albert, who's the lead, the boy who falls in love with the horse, and thankfully I got to go on an awful lot, which was amazing. It was amazing. I was understudied to Sean Young, who was very, very good, and it was amazing to play that role. I played David. There was a tragic accident with the guy who played the role of David.
Right.
He broke his back about 3 months into the run and was off for the rest of the year.
By being in the production, or was it outside?
No, in the production during
what on
work.
Earth happened?
He tried to lift something in the wrong way. He was a very, very slight guy called Josh, wonderful guy, and it was just bad luck. And he literally broke his back and had to lie down for 6 months. Awful. So his understudy, who played a character called Geordie, who's from Newcastle. He went on to play. He played David for the rest of the run, and my character Billy, spoiler alert, is dead at the very start of Act 2.
Yeah,
and Geordie doesn't come into Act till the end of Act 2. So I was understudy Geordie. So for almost my entire year, I actually played 2 roles, which was, great fun for me. But obviously, it was the product of an absolute tragedy. But it was really fun, and to do Albert was just amazing. It was amazing, and because everyone's on the same team in that show, because it's such a camaraderie. Because if I was ill one day, then the guy playing Albert would play one of my tiny puppet parts, and everyone just mucked in and did. It was amazing in that way.
With your tiny puppet parts, did you? Sorry, I know that sounded utterly filthy, but did you get to do anything with the goose, which is possibly one of my favourite creatures?
No, I played the crow, because I was always on stage at the same time as the goose. I played one of the crows, I played a bullet.
Oh, God, yeah. All 7 of those that cross the stage, the giant bullets.
Yes, I was a giant bullet. I was
and the battleships.
I was another soldier. No, I wasn't. They were played by women for some reason.
Battleships.
They decided, well, I mean...
pigeonholing again.
Man,
it's bloody
Why
pigeonholing.
do women always bloody play battleships?
Yeah. Awkward.
Yeah, for some reason they made that choice, which is, I mean, I don't...
Doesn't make any sense. I'm sure in Marianne Elliott's sort of, world that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, hang on a sec. Marianne Elliott did direct, didn't she?
Yes,
she did.
Yes.
And what is it about those? What is it about those puppets? What did you learn to bring them to life?
One thing was that you had to look at the puppet at all times, so that the audience looks at you and sees, okay, there's nothing to see here, and looks at the puppet instead. So your interest is always in what the puppet's doing, never in yourself, never in your hands. You're looking at the puppet's eyes. When you are doing it, there were people who played fence posts in the show, where they would have a stick, or just hold a stick, and then they would create a stable, and they would just be 4 humans holding 4 sticks, and it's a stable. And a really subtle thing was we were told that you just have to have your eyes just slightly down, so that the audience just sees hooded eyes. So it's not interesting. So you choose not to look at it. And it's amazing, and that's why simple things like that, just knowing the psychology of a thing, is how you can look at a horse that's clearly got a human being holding its head up, and decide to completely forget that human being exists and just look at a horse. It was extraordinary.
I've always loved the bits of puppetry I've been involved in and learnt. Just things like introducing breath to everyday objects. Abigail Matthews is someone I like very much and have worked with a few times. She would go on to do Warhorse. And Abigail would bring things like the Yellow Pages to life, just with breath and rhythm and
amazing.
And you're just like, it really is, and it's the bloody Yellow Pages. Like, how are you?
Part of our audition was they got a big pile of sticks that they just got from the local field, just this pile of sticks, and they said, everyone pick a stick. So there's sort of 30 fully grown men with sticks, and they go, okay, just imagine it's breath, and you're sort of going, and you end up sort of making these tiny movements with your hands to sort of make it move, and they say, now give it a voice. And so at first you're thinking, oh God, this is so awkward. Like, you start going oh, or something. You start thinking, what does a stick sound like? But by the end, you're going around the room interacting with other, and I mean, some of the men were 60-year-old men just playing with a stick, and it was the weirdest audition, but it was just it really opened up a part of me. Actually, it made me braver. So I thought, well, if I can look silly, then while being, if I allow myself to look silly, then I allow myself to make mistakes and try new things.
It's that thing we said earlier, isn't it? It's about trying to release that inner child again, because it's, maybe for whatever reason when we're younger we try and shut it up so much that actually sometimes to go, it's okay, I'm listening to you now. And what would you want to do? And
it was just a great time. And also it happened to be where I met my wife.
Did you?
Yeah, she was our physiotherapist.
Oh, I see. So you got extra treatment.
Yeah, special treatment. Yeah.
Oh, Alistair, you appear to be back. Yeah, back's playing up again.
I was in there a lot.
I bet you were.
She would say why. She would sort of. This was when when there was absolutely nothing going on. She would say, "What?" And I'd say, "Oh, it's just it's my back again." So, and I just liked being around. I fancied it,
Yeah.
But she never gave me the time of day at all, because she's very loyal. I think she had a boyfriend at the time, so it was off the cards. But as soon as they broke up, I gave her a kiss at the Christmas party. And,
aww.
Yeah. And now I married her.
And did the goose or Joey deliver the rings on the aisle?
No, I mean that would have been amazing, but no, they didn't.
Bastards.
I just had boring old Fra Fee singing instead.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Rubbish.
Think we had him on the show. Can't remember.
I know, whatever. I would have rather the goose.
Hello, my dears. You have the ineffable and probably undeserved pleasure of listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates. This is Stephen Fry wishing you a wonderful listen. Thank you.
Well, it's time for the Show People podcast platform, the part of the show where we give some well-earned exposure to a playwright, composer or artist to share their original work with our listeners. And today's platform is given to Ashley M.A. Walsh, who has currently got 15 musicals in development. Some of them have had the blessing of being performed at drama schools and fringe theatres. Ashley works as a freelance composer and musical director and is currently Northern-based, working on several new projects in collaboration with the Royal Northern College, and also has 2 musicals heading into production this summer at the Brindley Theatre and the Hope Mill Theatre. Today, we're going to hear a song from The Jury, which is soon to have its world premiere at the Brindley Theatre. 12 strangers find themselves absorbed in a controversial case, engulfed by the media. The pressure is on to unanimously decide on a verdict, but they are completely divided. Putting their personal morals to the test, they find themselves lost in a labyrinth of secrets, revelations, lies, and newfound truths. Breaking almost every rule in the process, they finally conclude on a verdict. But is it the right verdict? This intense musical will have you on the edge of your seat and will leave you questioning your own moral compass. We're going to hear a song called So It Comes to This. After the jury unearth some truth in the evidence and make discoveries in the case previously overlooked, they ultimately have the choice of moral conduct or justice according to the law. Sarah, the foreman, breaks down their options to them and reflects on the reality that faces not only them, but those involved in the case. Performed by Leanne Talbot, here's So It Comes to This from The Jury by Ashley M.A. Walsh.
So it comes to this, another life in your hands, another future at stake, another girl in care. So it comes to this. Do you follow your head, or do you follow your heart instead? So it comes to this, to the judgment day. What will the jury say? We find out today. Chance to right every wrong, to save a girl from a life of despair. If I do right, I'll set my mind free of the lies and the fables, the mysteries and morals, all the diseases that come after quarrels. People who think they can judge someone else blindly, missing the point. Am I missing the point? A man's on trial, a woman's dead, a girl's alone. Has she been misled? So it comes to this. Do you waiver a crime as though it was nothing, as though it was fine? And then you think of the girl, all innocent and golden, sweet and pure as the first day of spring, but her eyes are lost in a distant stare, and her tears are rolling down her cheek. She is fighting it hard chance. Your final chance. Your only chance.
To book tickets for the jury at the Brindley Theatre, visit www.thebrindley.org.uk, and to listen to more of Ashley's work, just search for Ashley M.A. Walsh on Twitter and SoundCloud. Are you a writer, composer or artist who creates original work? Well, I want to hear from you. Please send any recordings that you have with full permission to use on the show, along with some information about yourself and your work, to info@arian-productions.com, and I'm passionate about supporting new work and sharing it with our loyal listeners.
Hi, this is John Barr, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates.
Alistair Brammer, I am going to strand you on tour in Whitley Bay. You have to tell me the things that you need to survive, starting with...
Items.
Yeah. No,
you're going to specify.
I'm going to specify. Yeah,
Great.
I mean, I don't want just a general kit list, that'd be quite long.
Mm-hmm.
But and you do get a copy, by the way, of the complete works of William Shakespeare and the Bible. You can do with those whatever you wish.
I use the Bible to wipe my... Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
I know, it's outrageous. I mean, you know...
I'm sorry.
So I'm going to strand you in Whitley Bay. What would be the album you would need to survive?
Oh, goodness me. Album. Do you know what I really... A Comfort in Sound, Feeder.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that album. I know every word. Or I might just give it to my 14-year-old self and...
Joseph in Amazing Technicolour Dreamcoat?
No, some 41 All Killer No Filler. I know every word to it.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's their sort of most known album. They, bloody, 'cause I'm in too deep and I'm trying to keep up above in my head. Yeah. Do you want me to say a theatre one?
Well, you're going to get album. you get musical later.
Looking at me like, okay, oh, fine.
No, I mean, otherwise everyone's just going to say West Side Story. What would be the film though?
Film. I tell you what, a film that I've watched must be 20 times and I can still watch it. If it's on, I won't turn it off. Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, it's a fabulous film.
Yeah. And it's just you go, oh yeah, that bit. Oh yeah, that bit. You know,
Yeah.
it's endlessly fantastic. And there's so many moments in it, like endless number of classic moments in it.
And also the demise of Brooks, I just find so painfully sad.
I know.
Sorry, everyone. Spoiler alert.
I decided not to stay.
Yeah.
Oh, that when he says that.
That was the last time I know, just
Yeah.
like, oh.
I saw an automobile once when I was a kid, and now they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
I know.
And the Weird Sisters, I just find utterly chilling. Like that whole thing is just beautiful. Anyway, what would be the book?
Book. Oh goodness me, I'm unromantic. I don't know. There's so many. I tell you what, a book that is, and everyone read it, but when I finished it, I missed them. So maybe to have company, it would be One Day.
Oh yeah,
David Nichols.
Yeah.
Oh, that book.
It was everywhere. Do you know? It's so funny books like that because now, whenever you go into like a pound shop or a charity store, they're always sort of everywhere, and it's
there's like 12
this
of them.
this is one of the most wonderful books.
Yeah.
Why is it only a pound?
I know. But yeah, I'd say that. Just I just remember reading it, and I really did miss my friends M and Dex when they left. When I finished, I was like, oh,
what am I going to do now?
So I figured that if I have it as a book, I could keep reading it and keep having friends.
And what would be the play?
So lame, wasn't it?
That wasn't lame.
What would be?
I'm going to give you another one of these.
Oh God. What was the next question? Play.
Yeah.
Do I get to, am I reading it or watching it?
No one's ever asked that. I'm going to say no. You get to read it.
Okay, so I haven't just got. There's just like 5 actors who
just sit in your
are
cupboard.
stranded and they have to just come out and do. Oh bloody! Oh, I've got to do War Us again.
God.
Yeah, oh God, Pinter. A play. Oh goodness me. Do you know what? Long Day's Journey into Night.
It's a wonderful play.
Yeah, that.
It's
just because it's 4 hours long, so you get a lot for your money.
Yeah,
and B, I just think to watch it, you see so much depth and fullness in the characters. I can only imagine. I've never read it. I've only watched it. I can only imagine reading it. You get to learn things for yourself and even more, and it like enrich them even more. So I feel like I get my money's worth again.
And the musical.
These are good questions. It's hard to just do one, isn't it?
I know.
Of all of these things. I mean, yeah, West Side Story is amazing. Les Mis is amazing, and I'm not bored of it in terms of the music. I could still so I guess that says something. I've known it for 13 years. That's a hard one. I think I'll just say it's something Bernstein-y, purely because of the orchestras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just something that there's others. That isn't just about the words. I would say that West Side Story, because it's brilliant.
Says. Because it is brilliant. I mean, anybody listening to the show that hasn't listened to West Side Story, nearly everybody has said it. So go and listen to it.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something else that had that big orchestral sort of big thing. Like Company's got amazing music like that. These big ba-dum kind of big sounds.
Sweeney.
Yeah.
Basically all Sondheim.
Yeah, I bet West Side Story is my answer.
Yeah.
Item Spatula, just so you know. Yeah.
You can have West Side Story.
Yeah. What about, is there any more questions?
No.
This is Bill Deemer, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates.
Well, now it's time for everyone's favourite part of the show, which is Funny 5 Minutes. No, Alistair Brammer, I have in front of me, written by my own fair hands, some of the most outrageous, extraordinary questions that you will ever have been asked in an interview. Okay. You have 5 minutes to answer as many of these questions as possible. However, you are allowed 3 passes.
Are they quiz questions or are they?
They are. I mean, they're just very unusual questions that have come from the dark recesses of my sick and twisted mind.
Okay.
Alistair Brammer, you are allowed 3 passes, but use them wisely because you never know what I'm going to ask. Alistair Brammer, let's play Funny 5 Minutes. My favourite piece of music in the world. What are the best kind of pants?
Boxers.
Boxers. What is your worst habit?
Picking my head.
Picking your head?
Yeah, sometimes I'll just be picking my head.
Have you ever got like a long-term case of like head lice or
Nothing
something?
at all. It's just I'll just like fish around.
Your wife,
she hates it.
Of course she does.
She hates it, and she isn't that her thing. She hates about me.
Everybody hates it, Alistair. If that's the case.
Yeah, I can do it at home.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Invisibility, like everyone else.
Probably.
Yeah.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
What is your favourite season?
Summer.
Why summer?
Because it's warm.
Okay.
Really boring.
No, that's all right. If somebody narrated your life, who would it be?
Ian McKellen.
Good choice.
Yeah.
What is your least favourite television show?
Least favourite?
Yeah.
On the buses.
just because it's the only thing you can think of.
Yeah, it's not great, and I know it's because it was on TV yesterday. That's all it is.
You're just like, I hate this.
Yeah.
On the buses, load of shit. If you were an animal, what animal would you be?
A fox.
Fox.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet or savoury?
No reason.
No reason at all?
No, savoury.
Savoury. So like a cheese board over Haribo any day?
For sure, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You've been in America.
Parma ham. For sure.
Serrano ham. If you could visit any point in history, when would it be and why?
It would be just before my tax bill.
Oh, don't even get me talking about tax bills. Don't even let me get started.
Just before, yeah. And just that glee, that joy,
just
of having not paid it.
Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
One horse-sized
duck or 100 duck-sized horses. Oddly related to Warhorse, I now realise.
100 duck-sized horses.
And the reason for that?
I feel like I could kick them away.
100 en masse.
Yeah, I could just sort of spin. You know, like I feel like I could do that. I have a fantasy about being attacked by like sort of 10, 12-year-old lads at the same time and just being able to just sort of pummel them. Is that weird?
I mean, it's weirder you call it a fantasy, not a nightmare.
Yeah. I just really, it's just weird part of me that wants to just like take a human and just like sort of throw them.
Dark. I'll give you my therapist answer this. Do you believe in ghosts?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No.
Would you ever like to swim with sharks?
Sure. Not desperately.
Not need to?
Yeah, no.
What is the world's best swear word?
Cunt.
Very good. Hang on. If you ordered a pizza, what would be on top of it?
Margarita, really boring, just cheese.
Oh no!
I really like 4 cheese pizza, 4 formaggi.
Who is the ugliest person you've ever had to kiss?
Oh, pass.
Oh,
sorry,
it's a pass. Do you think a swan could actually break someone's arm?
Yeah.
Nah, I don't believe it for a second.
Really?
No, it's a swan. Come on, let's just be real about things.
Yeah, okay. Nonsense.
What is the meaning of life?
Love.
Have you ever pissed yourself on stage? No.
No, but I've been there when someone else has.
Have you? Ooh, what happened?
A child.
No.
Yes.
Not Giraffes. Gun wasn't too loud.
No, it was a Tui in Miss Saigon, one of the kids.
Oh no.
Yeah, they needed the toilet and they were standing funny and they... Yeah.
Was that a showstop?
No.
No.
No, it was not. It was just a slippy stage for the bowels.
Oh. Did he ever come back? Could he ever live it down?
No, we all pointed at him and said, piss pants, piss pants. He was 3, so he could take it.
Yeah.
He wasn't a child.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Sadly, though...
Oh, at the end.
That noise tells me that's it.
Oh,
I know.
It's been a pleasure.
I know, and I mean, we can always do it again, just without microphones and with beer. So
that's true, just not recorded.
A big thank you to Ashley M.A. Walsh for sending in music from the jury. But most importantly, please go mad for my delectable guest, Mr. Alistair Brammer.
Thank you, this is lovely.
It's a lovely
What
thing.
a great audience, what a great crowd.
That's right, I'm going to hush you down. Shush, audience. Hush,
guys, please.
Hush, little audience. Alistair, how can people keep up to date with all that you're up to?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Alistair Brammer. There's no hyphens, no nothing, just
Very
my name.
easy.
I have a very silly name, so it's easy to have my own name.
And no website?
I don't know. I feel like you shouldn't have a website unless someone else makes it for you.
It's a very good point. Also a bit 90s.
Yeah.
Like business cards.
Yeah. I would just cover it in like Comic Sans and GIFs.
Comic Sans MS.
Yeah.
The world's worst
So,
font.
I wouldn't know what I was doing.
Well, you can follow the show on Twitter. You can use @ShowPeopleUK. You can use #ShowPeoplePodcast. And, of course, you can follow me at Andrew Keates. This podcast is produced by Arian Productions Limited, dedicated to giving opportunities to theatre makers. If you can support the work we do, then please become a friend of Arian by making a donation and help fund this free podcast, as well as the shows, masterclasses, and more from Arian Productions in 2018 and beyond by visiting www.arian-productions.com/donate. It's meant so much to us seeing how many listeners are buying our Show People podcast pens and mugs. They are very, very fabulous. If you would like to get your hands on one, just go to arian-productions.com/shop. And finally, we've been bowled over by the thousands of downloads this show has been attracting all over the world. Please don't forget, leave us an iTunes review, as it helps with those magical Apple algorithms. All I have left to say is until next time, Show Peeps, and just be better. To book tickets for the jury at the Brindley Theatre, visit www.thebrindley.org.uk, and to listen to more of Ashley's work, just search for Ashley M.A. Walsh on Twitter and on SoundCloud. Let's say that again. Yes. Cloud. Book tickets. Oh. To book tickets for the jury at the Brindley Theatre, visit www.